Hey guys, welcome to book review number 62. Keep this short because I'm a little sick. Let's see. The day the world exploded, Krakatoa, the day the world exploded, August 27th, 1883. Yeah, 1883. Alright, so what this book is about, it's a kind of all-encompassing, scientific, but also historical book about the eruption of the Krakatoa volcano in Indonesia between Java and Sumatra in 1883. This was a much more scientific book. It looked at the kind of volcanology, I don't know, and tectonic plates, and I am sick. And the way volcanoes form, subduction plates. It also looked at things like judging how ice cores develop. And what happens is when there's a volcano, ash goes all around the world. And in poles, it goes on top of ice. And then you can take an ice core. And because it generally just kind of falls on top of one another, unlike dirt in the warmer climates that kind of gets mixed up, you can tell by the stratification of the ice when it took place. And actually, he mentioned that in the book that this volcano had previously erupted a few times before, 1600s, and then there were some like anecdotal evidence of kind of prehistory, pre-European arrival. What else? He talks pretty extensively about the history, about the, Indonesia was controlled by the Dutch during this time period, initially as part of the Dutch East India Company, but by the time this volcanic eruption actually happened, it was directly controlled by the Netherlands, the country of Holland. Yeah. Let's see. What else did he talk about? He talked about, kind of the, colonial life during that time period. How there was kind of Batavia, which was the current name of Jakarta, which is the capital of Indonesia, and is actually just, 100 some odd miles from Krakatoa, and the experience of the people that they had there. He also talked about extensively the shipping people that actually went by, and the huge amounts of pumice, which is a kind of volcanic rock, as well as ash that completely covered the sun. And really, some of the sailors during this time period, during their ship logs, compared it to the openings of the fires of hell. And that's probably pretty accurate for someone that was within the waters near Krakatoa. Obviously, no one was on Krakatoa during the time period because the volcano completely exploded. Which is different than most volcanoes, because most volcanoes kind of have their lava and then kind of smolder, but they're still the same structural form of the mountain. But Krakatoa actually completely blew itself off the map to the point that there was no island where there was a small sliver of the island that was still there, but the main part of the island just completely blew itself off. He sort of ends the book. Man, this is really short. I should go on longer about this. Well, let's see. What were some other things? Yeah, he talked extensively about. Getting a good look at the book cover here. The geography of and the ecology of Indonesia, specifically relating, ultimately it relates to plate tectonics and how the volcano exploded, but it's also related to how land masses move via continental drift, which is actually, I didn't realize this is a relatively new field of study. That I think it was 1965 that they kind of unified the entire theory, even though before that they had previously thought of some stuff. But kind of what an earlier indicator of what plate tectonics was that evolution, that all controversial topic, of animals evolved differently depending on the islands they were near, And actually, later they discovered that the islands that drifted together tended to have similar types of animals. Whereas in Indonesia, they have this thing called the Wallace Line. Alfred Russel Wallace, the co-founder of, or co-creditor of the theory of evolution with Charles Darwin, theorized that another one of his theories was theorized that there was this line in Indonesia that kind of was the separation point between these two ecological spheres. And really that's only important to the volcano and what it would later imply in plate tectonics. Alfred Russel Wallace did not know about plate tectonics. He just kind of theorized about island development, if you will. Let's see, what else is there? The League from the Last Sun, Unchaining the Gates of Hell, Monuments, When the Mountains Moved. Yeah. I don't know, I guess the, yeah, it's just a very encompassing book in, the history of the people of the time period. You know, it talks kind of about the, tyrannical, Dutch colonial rule, that they were living kind of the white people in the settlement were making money hand over fist via the spice trade, which developed in Indonesia. But kind of the repression of the people. Now, this eventually came around is Indonesians. This is kind of a negative word, but I don't necessarily mean it to be. Are very suspicious, and the book, towards the end of the book, Simon Winchester. I don't think I mentioned his name. There you go. Simon Winchester, that's Krakatoa right there. Theorized, or it's kind of a political theory, so it's not, hard science, but still a, observed phenomenon, that, with the exploding of Krakatoa, it was deemed as a, negative sign from the gods that the, Dutch were actually there, illegally or, just in bad karma, which of course mixed, this is not Hindu or Buddhism, it's actually a Muslim nation, but he mentions that the Muslim, or the local superstition is very much mixed within the Muslim sphere to create a more mild form of Islam, like not as fundamental as the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, but more unpredictable because of these kind of random local influences that influenced Islam in the region. What else? It was just, I like the era because it was the Victorian era, even though this was the, a Dutch settlement and not a Victorian settlement. It seemed like it had an air of grandeur to it, that even one of the things mentioned in the book is it was the first major natural disaster that took place when telegraph lines, like Morse code, the first kind of international communication network, was established. And so it was just sort of a very heady time, but also a very terrifying time in that Europeans, who were mostly cloistered kind of within Europe and to a degree North America, were finding out about the rest of the world, that crazy colonial non-white world out there, with all its inhabitants that have different beliefs and volcanic activity that is much more severe than it is in Europe, for example. And so he ends the book finally going to Krakatoa. Yeah, we can make this about 10 minutes. We'll make this a nice short one. This is a really good book. Like I said, it's very, very detailed. But I'm going to leave this short, but I would recommend it really is all-encompassing when it comes to, the science of Krakatoa, the history of Krakatoa. He relates some personal stories, covering a whole bunch from ecology to plate tectonics to other things that I'm not remembering right now. But it's very good. But he finishes the book by actually going on to the son of Krakatoa, which there's actually, even though Krakatoa blew itself up, there's a new volcano that in the 1920s or 30s, well, 20s through the 40-ish, kind of it went above water and then went below water and then kind of later on eventually went completely above water. He goes on this and kind of forewarns about this Krakatoa, like it might happen again, But he does mention that this Krakatoa, the son of Krakatoa, kind of the volcano that's reforming, is constantly going off, which most likely will prevent it from having another major eruption. Yeah, and the last thing I want to say is just the scale of the eruption. That is something that I should mention, because it really is pretty important. Ash spread completely around the world. Worldwide temperatures were significantly lower to the point that there were crop failures in all of Europe, which led to a migration into the Americas, and I think also like just mass migration in general to areas where people thought that they could raise their crops better, even though the cause was not locally geographic. That was kind of their mentality. But he also mentions that artists would paint sunsets because the light reflected through this ash created tremendous sunsets that were all the vivid colors of the kind of warm spectroscope, from oranges, reds, and then like later in the sunset your deep purples and blues, and there was actually a huge industry based around this during this time period. It's the largest sound and also largest eruption that's ever taken place, way larger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, way larger than even the largest Soviet nuclear tests, that people's eardrums would just like bleed because of the sound if they were kind of around the area and not killed. 30,000 people died. It was kind of a precursor to the 2005 Sumatra earthquake that led to the tidal wave all across the Indian Ocean, from southern Thailand to Sri Lanka. That's the current one. There was a tidal wave with Krakatoa, but it was more because Krakatoa was kind of confined between Java and Sumatra, kind of enclosed in the strait, in the Sunda, I believe it is, strait. There was huge devastation like within 30 miles of the coast, and there were tidal waves in other areas, but the devastation wrecked on the rest of the Indian Ocean was relatively mild compared to the 2005 tsunami. Also, there were just a lot less people then too. But kind of, it's almost like if you have a sound, like the tidal wave, if you have a sound and you put it in a box, a very tight box, and then that sound just sounds like it's exploding because it's a very tight area. That was true of the tidal wave that happened after Krakatoa, and was the vast killer of the majority of people related to the tragedy. I think they said that the plume was 17 miles in the sky, that it could be seen from, I don't want to make it up, but it was 17 miles in the sky and created like this huge, way larger than any sort of nuclear explosion kind of cloud. Yeah, it was just really a crazy event. I don't know if I have too much more to say. I am sick, and I gotta return this book, and it's late at night, so I'm gonna cut it off here. The day the world exploded, August 27th, 1883, and the main title is Krakatoa, which is the name of the volcano, by Simon Winchester. There it is right there. Alright, so you guys, stick around. See ya.